This is Brett the Hitman Hart, and you're watching another original wrestling documentary.
Terry Funk was a professional wrestler who was born on June 30th, 1944. The son of legendary pro wrestler Dory Funk, Terry himself became an icon in the industry. With a career spanning over 6 decades, he faced all the top names in the business. Throughout his career, he pioneered what is now known as hardcore wrestling, and is widely regarded as the greatest of all time. Starting his career in 1965 in his father's promotion, which he eventually owned with his brother Dory Jr., Terry would appear in virtually every territory and hold dozens of titles. In the mid-1980s, he would make his way to the World Wrestling Federation, where he became a household name. Known for his rough and tough demeanor in the ring and his brawling style, behind the scenes he was soft-spoken and went out of his way to help younger wrestlers, including a young Mick Foley, when in Japan in 1995, the two would face each other in one of the greatest death matches of all time, where many considered this the passing of the torch by Terry by putting him over. He was quoted in a 2010 interview saying that he would never retire and wrestled his last match in 2017 at the age of 74. In 2021, it was reported he was battling dementia and later Parkinson's disease. These conditions, along with the toll his wrestling career took on his body, likely contributed to the decline of his overall health. His passing marked the end of an era in professional wrestling, leaving behind a storied career that will never be duplicated. This is the story of Terry Funk. The Funk family tree began in Hammond, Indiana after World War I, when Terry's grandfather, Adam Funk, moved from Germany and joined the Hammond Police Department. He not only would come in contact with Al Capone on a regular basis, he also killed at least 6 people in the line of duty. His father, Dorrance Funk, was born in 1918 and given the nickname Dory by his mother. Terry admitted he saw his father get violent more than once, contributing it to the upbringing of his no-nonsense grandfather Adam. Dory Sr., in his younger years, would have several brushes with the law, but eventually decided to focus on wrestling and football. He would go on to win the state wrestling tournament 3 years in a row. Dory would be recruited into the University of Indiana in Bloomington, where he took his wrestling career to the next level. In 1940, Dory married his high school sweetheart Dorothy Matlock, who was a year older. Because Dory was still a freshman in college, they kept their marriage a secret. As World War II heated up in Europe, Dory's days as an amateur wrestler were over. In 1941, the couple had their first son, Dory Ernest Funk Jr., and in 1944, while Dory was off fighting in World War II, Dorothy gave birth to Terry, who was a breech baby. While in labor, hemorrhaging began and a blood donor would be required. The only person in the area with the same blood type was a doctor. So he gave his own blood, and Terry was born. Terry was named after one of his mother's favorite characters from the funnies, Terry from Terry and the Pirates. While growing up, Dory Jr. would threaten to beat up Terry for anything. When Dory Sr. returned from World War II, low on funds with no job or money, and having a family to support, Dory contacted local promoter Bulk Estes, who ran shows in the Hammond area. Shortly before his death in July 2004, Terry tracked down Bulk, by then 87, at his home in Oklahoma and asked him what happened that day. He said, "Dory took me down and hooked me in a top body scissors and face lock, but after several minutes I got away. We wrestled about 10 more minutes with neither one getting the advantage and we both called it quits." Bulk decided it was best for Dory to go to another wrestling area to get some ring experience. He talked to Toledo promoter Cliff Mopin. Mopin agreed to use him and even let him use his real name. They borrowed a house trailer and enough money for a used Oldsmobile, and the Funk family was ready for the road. They made their home in a trailer park, as did a lot of other wrestlers' families, and they bonded with a lot of them. It was immediate acceptance with other wrestlers' families. The kids stuck together and the families did too. According to Terry, it was much more of a circus atmosphere. The family would make the 30-foot trailer their home, and Terry's mother decorated the room him and his brother shared with paper stars that glowed in the dark. Dory Sr. worked in the Ohio, Florida, Oklahoma, and Arizona territories before returning to Ohio for a second run under promoter Al Haft. Soon after, it was announced they were bringing in the heavyweights, which was anyone over 205 pounds. At 190 pounds soaking wet, Dory was a junior heavyweight and saw the writing on the wall. He was out, and the big guys were in. He gave his notice and they were off to Texas. The couple decided they wanted to lay down some roots. With Dory Jr. changing schools all the time, and Terry just reaching school age, Dory and Dorothy decided, like other families, they wanted a home and stability. As Terry and Dory got older, their fights with each other became more regular, with their mother swatting at them with a rolled-up newspaper to keep them in line. It was evident the boys had completely different personalities. While Dory was more laid back and reserved, Terry was crazy enough to try anything, including having a pet skunk named Stinky, who had its scent glands removed. Because wrestling wasn't yet a viable option to support his family, Dory Sr. got a job as the superintendent at the boys' ranch under Cal Farley, who was also a professional wrestler. Dory Sr. ran the entire ranch for 140 kids. Dory would work at the ranch all day and occasionally wrestle at night. As a child, Terry was convinced his father was fighting for his life. Even though he usually knew the other person his father was fighting, he never once questioned the legitimacy of the sport. Terry would go to the arena and cry while watching his father get beaten up, much like his own kids would do decades later. According to Terry, all through his years in school, he would constantly defend his dad as people would regularly refer to him as a phony. In 1952, Terry was chosen as Boy of the Year by the National Athletic Achievement Committee of the YMCA. He won the title by topping more than 35,000 other boys who were entered into the annual competition. Terry started first grade at the boys' ranch. He even received an award for being the best speller in class. Because there was no cigarettes allowed on the ranch, the older boys would convince Terry to start stealing cigarettes, and to fit in with the older crowd, he began smoking as well. At 6 years old, Terry got into his first fight with a boy 2 or 3 years older. Already wrestling his brother and dad at home on a regular basis, when the other boy tried to steal Terry's seat in the mess hall during lunch, Terry snuck up behind him and put the first illegal hold on him he ever used. He grabbed him from behind, put both fingers in his mouth, and pulled back as hard as he could. Every Thursday night, Dory would take the boys from the ranch to the matches. Each week, there'd be a bus outside waiting, and they even had their own roped-off area to sit in. At one point, Dory got into a disagreement with promoter Dory Denton, which resulted in the family leaving the territory. Dory Sr., with family in tow, headed to Vancouver, British Columbia, and wrestled under a mask, working for promoter Rod Fenton. This is where the Double Cross Ranch name came from. Dory wrestled as the Outlaw, and was billed as being from the Double Cross Ranch. Through the mid-1950s, the family would travel across Canada to Ontario, where Dory would have a bloody feud with both Maurice and Paul Vachon. In 1956, Dory would settle his differences with Denton in Texas and become owner of the Amarillo territory. That same year, as Terry started middle school, he would meet the love of his life, Vicky, but wouldn't start dating until high school. While Terry was falling in love, his father was involved in violent matches, including the Texas Death Match, in which he is credited for inventing. When Terry was 14, his dad finally smartened him up to the business, which gave Terry an even greater appreciation for the sport. After he was told the truth, he continued to defend it as a shoot, smartening up only a handful of people throughout his life. Because of the small populations of the towns they would travel to and the number of performances they had to do, if it wasn't looked at as a shoot, they wouldn't be doing much business. Wrestling wasn't the carnival coming to the area, it was a weekly pastime. In 1959, Terry graduated from Canyon High School, where he played on the varsity football team. Although he was small in high school, weighing only 155 pounds, he secured a tryout at Cisco Junior College and gained 30 more pounds that summer. Terry's newfound size helped him make the junior college team, eventually bulking up to 225 pounds. When he began playing as a linebacker and a guard, he topped the scales at around 240 pounds. Upon transferring to West Texas, playing alongside teammates Stan Hansen, Bobby Duncombe, and Virgil Runnels. Terry chose West Texas because it was close to home. Although Terry had dabbled in amateur wrestling, he gave it up during his sophomore year in high school. Nevertheless, he continued honing his wrestling skills at home. His family's garage had been converted into a wrestling gym, where he trained alongside notable wrestlers such as his father, brother, Bob Geigel, Vern Gagne, Dick Hunton, Joe Scarpella, and Lou Thez. This dedication to wrestling would later play a huge role in Terry's success. In 1965, as soon as the football season ended in his senior year, Terry started wrestling in small towns on the Amarillo circuit. Growing up, there was never any question that he wanted to follow in his dad's footsteps. Not only did Terry debut in the ring, he also purchased his first car, a 1965 Galaxy for $3,200. His girlfriend Vicky's father owned a gas station in town, and one of his employees was a local wrestling fan named Virgil Runnels, soon to be known as none other than Dusty Rhodes. Terry would regularly fill up his car at the station. Desperate to get into the business, Dusty would constantly try and get him to introduce him to his father Dory, but the senior Funk wasn't interested, who decided to train Bobby Duncombe instead. Dusty would leave Texas altogether, but still find his way into the business. According to Terry, he made his way to Pittsburgh and told the promoter he worked for the Funks and talked his way into the world title match. He told the promoter he forgot his gear. The truth was, he had no gear. Terry's first match was in December 1965 against veteran Sputnik Monroe. Sputnik was a heel and led the match and didn't give Terry much of a chance to get in any offense. Terry found himself gasping for breath, thoroughly exhausted and nervously drained early in the match, causing his nose to start bleeding. Adhering to his opponent's directions, he was on the receiving end of relentless aggression until his father hurried down to ringside. In a stern outburst, Dory shouted, "God damn you, you dumb son of a bitch. You're letting him eat your ass up. Get off your goddamn ass and do something, or I'll beat your ass." Fueled by his father's threats, Terry sprang into action, executing swift moves that led to a successful pin and an upset on Sputnik. Despite the victory, Terry faced additional criticism from his father in the locker room, who had more choice words for him following the match. One night, in a bar in Amarillo, Terry was minding his own business, engaged in a conversation with his wife Vicky. As they chatted, a man approached their table and asked Vicky to dance. Politely, Terry intervened, requesting the man wait as he was currently talking with his wife. Upon recognizing him as Terry Funk, the man extended his hand for a handshake. However, instead of a customary handshake, the man gripped Terry's hands with excessive force. Despite the discomfort, Terry attempted to downplay the situation. The man, although a hefty 300 pounds, lacked a muscular build. Unable to endure the intense pressure, Terry instinctively retaliated by delivering a powerful slap, causing the man to topple onto the floor. In the aftermath, a diamond ring Terry had recently purchased flew off during the encounter. The bar's sturdy iron tables, including the one in which they were seated, played a crucial role in the unfolding events. After the man's fall, he clung onto one of the heavy tables for support. Terry, attempting to assist him, grabbed the man's pants. However, in the process of lifting him, the man's pants and underwear unexpectedly tore off, revealing his bare, overweight posterior. In a humorous turn of events, Terry decided to seize the opportunity and bit a chunk out of the man's exposed buttocks, bringing the confrontation to an unexpected conclusion. Nevertheless, the incident didn't end there, as the man pursued legal action the next day, leading Terry to settle out of court for a hefty sum of $750. In retrospect, Terry deemed it to be the most expensive piece of ass he ever got. He departed West Texas State with just 4 hours needed to complete his degree, a status that remains unchanged till the day he died. Despite being on the brink of graduation, his venture into the world of professional wrestling by working in his father's territory for several months led him to make a pivotal decision in 1966. Presented with an opportunity to join Eddie Graham's promotion in Florida, Terry made the bold choice to abandon his academic pursuits. Dismissing the idea of completing his remaining coursework, he embraced a career in wrestling wholeheartedly and never looked back. Reflecting on his decision, Terry acknowledges occasional thoughts of what might have been had he stayed in school or delved deeper into his academic interests. However, the allure of being part of the wrestling world, combined with the prospect of earning $25 to $30 a night in Florida, proved to be too compelling to resist.
In hindsight, the financial rewards and the chance to be involved in the beloved wrestling business overshadowed any regrets about leaving his academic path unfinished. Terry had accumulated some experience in the wrestling ring when discussions with Bud Grant arose regarding the possibility of playing professional football in Winnipeg. The offer on the table was a contract with a yearly salary of $12,000. Simultaneously, he embarked in a wrestling venture with Vern Gagne in the AWA. Making his debut on AWA television, Terry teamed up with Dennis Stamp in a match against Larry Hennig and Harley Race. Despite Terry's limited knowledge of the business at the time, Hennig and Race, who were friends with his father, showcased their skills and made him appear exceptional in the ring. It was a testament to their talent, proving they could wrestle effectively with anyone, even someone relatively inexperienced like Terry. Subsequently, Vern Gagne dispatched Terry to Denver for a match against Butch Levy, expanding his wrestling experiences beyond the AWA. Terry anticipated replicating the success he had with Hennig and Race at his match against Butch Levy, expecting a 12-minute bout. However, that night he discovered that wrestling Levy for 12 minutes felt more like enduring a marathon for 12 days. Disheartened by the experience, Terry began questioning his abilities, thinking, "God damn, is there something wrong with me? I ain't as hot as I thought I was." Distressed by the match, Terry, after sharing a couple of beers with fellow wrestler Salento Rodriguez, headed straight to the hotel and went to bed. Before leaving Amarillo, his father had explicitly warned him not to indulge in excessive drinking and to conduct himself professionally while working for Vern. However, on the night his father decided to check in on him, a mix-up occurred with the hotel rooms, leading to Terry sleeping in Rodriguez's room, who had been deaf and communicated by feeling the phone vibrate. When Terry's father called, Salento picked up the phone and could only respond with unintelligible sounds. Frustrated, Dory Sr. yelled, "God damn it, I told you not to get drunk. You act like a nut, and then you hang up on me?" Terry clarified the misunderstanding, convincing his father that he wasn't the one who hung up. Despite the challenging experience in Denver and the football opportunity not working out, Terry soon returned home. Terry and his brother swiftly ascended through the ranks, excelling both as a tag team and in individual matches against formidable opponents. While in Florida, Eddie Graham would become a mentor to Terry, as Terry saw many similarities between Eddie and his father. But one difference was, according to Terry, Eddie held his son Mike back and never tried to get him over as a superstar. During his time in Florida was the first time Terry had a chance at being a heel. After playing a babyface in Amarillo, he enjoyed trying to make people believe what a rotten person he was. During his time in Florida, he found amusement and mischief as Wednesday nights were a highlight, as they held shows in the same Miami building once used by the legendary Jackie Gleason for his TV productions. In a mischievous act of rebellion, Gleason's unlocked dressing room became a target for Terry's antics. Without fail, every Wednesday night, Terry ventured into Gleason's dressing room and left a distinctive mark by purposely urinating on the toilet seat. It became a ritual, a cheeky act of defiance that added an element of amusement to Terry's routine. As the weeks passed, Terry couldn't help but revel in his own private joke. Each time he tuned in to watch Jackie Gleason's TV show, he chuckled to himself, knowing that at some point in that day, the famous entertainer had unknowingly shared a seat with Terry's unknown contribution. For Terry, this act became his own strange claim to fame during the time in Florida, adding a touch of humor and rebellion to his wrestling escapades. While still in Florida, Terry received a call from his father informing him of a significant development. His father's business partner Doc Sarpolis had passed away, and Terry's father had taken the opportunity to acquire the remaining shares in the promotion from Sarpolis' widow. "I want you to come back, Terry," his father said over the phone. In response, Terry expressed his hesitation, citing the financial success he was experiencing in Florida. "Dad," he explained, "I'm making a lot of money here." Undeterred, his father proposed a solution. "We'll figure out how much you're making a week, and I'll see if we can't come up with something better for you." After careful consideration with his wife, Terry calculated his weekly earnings and called his father back and let him know he was averaging $278 a week. To Terry's surprise, his father was confident in offering a better deal, stating he could do better than that. With the promise of a more lucrative agreement, Terry made the decision to return, giving his notice in Florida and rejoining his father's promotion. The family ties and the prospect of an improved financial deal played pivotal roles in Terry's choice to make the move back to his father's wrestling enterprise. While demonstrating a wrestling hold at his home to a visitor in 1973, Dory Funk Sr. had a heart attack and passed away in the ambulance on the way to the hospital with both his sons by his side, leaving the brothers as owners of the territory. In 1974, Terry Funk even challenged Muhammad Ali to a fight and offered him $250,000. Although the boxer never agreed to fight Terry Funk, he did agree to a match with Antonio Inoki 2 years later.
After Terry's father passed away, anxiety attacks plagued him. Convinced that heart problems were imminent, 6 months post to his demise, returning from a show in New Mexico, Terry experienced a sudden flash of symptoms. Seeking refuge in the nearest hospital, his blood pressure registered dangerously high levels. The haunting fear of a fate similar to his father's had induced his self-inflicted panic. Dory and Terry mourned deeply following their father's passing, but a determination to prove their capability in running the family business consumed them. This obsession led Terry to sacrifice family time, becoming wholly business-focused day in and day out. Despite achieving notable success, the relentless pursuit took a toll. The all-encompassing dedication to preserving and improving the family business led to the neglect of his home life, ultimately resulting in Vicky filing for divorce just a few months after his father's demise. Because Terry was a second-generation star and easily became established in wrestling, he felt he didn't have the need to take steroids. The devastating reality of Vicky leaving became the toughest pill for Terry to swallow. Despite the desire to salvage the relationship, the isolation caused by the business-centric focus had taken its toll. Recognizing the mistake of self-imposed isolation, Terry understood the irreversible damage caused by neglecting their family and lamented the missed opportunity to reconcile. At the time, according to Terry, he was battling drug addiction, but he quit in 1973 and never allowed the substance to take over his life again. Vicky decided to give him a second chance, but even when Terry brought pot into the house, she made him flush it down the toilet. By the mid-1970s, Terry was now known as the master of the Texas Death Match. After the passing of his father, he seemed to have a newly found rage inside. In the summer of 1975, NWA promoters faced a challenging decision regarding Jack Briscoe's successor as world champion. The decision narrowed down between Harley Race and Terry. Dory Jr. staunchly advocated on his behalf, vigorously supporting his brother, which generated significant backlash and animosity throughout the NWA. In December 1975, he emerged victorious over Jack Briscoe to claim the NWA World Heavyweight Championship in Miami, as Dory was absent for their scheduled title bout due to a previous obligation for All Japan Pro Wrestling. Terry would hold the title for 14 months, when he was defeated by Handsome Harley Race in Toronto. With Fred Atkin as a special referee, Race secured the championship through a submission using the Indian Deathlock, an uncommonly used technique that exerted significant pressure on Terry's injured leg. When Terry failed to answer Atkins' call, the match was ended. Terry had a preference for a submission finish, believing it would catch people off guard and contribute to the overall health of the business. Unconcerned about potentially losing heat by opting for a submission, Terry was confident in his ability to regain popularity and making a lasting impact. Terry wouldn't be without gold for long. Teaming up with Dory, the brothers would have success in Japan when they defeated Abdul the Butcher and the Sheik in the opening Tag League final, winning the All Japan Pro Wrestling World Tag Team Championship tournament. And the next year, Terry would win the NWA Brass Knuckles title when he defeated Killer Karl Krupp. In 1978, Terry would make his big screen debut when he played pro wrestling promoter Frankie the Thumper alongside Sylvester Stallone in the movie Paradise Alley, which pulled in $7 million at the box office. He would also do some stunt work on the Rambo movies and star in several commercials, including Lipton's Cup of Soup and Wendy's.
B! It's hard like my Deltoids.
Yes, but wouldn't you rather have the juicy taste of the Wendy's hamburger?
Hey, no pain, no gain. And that beef burger, that's pain, yeah, real pain, the kind I like. That burger put some serious hurt in me. I love it. Got any more?
In 1980, Western State Sports was in trouble. Ticket sales experienced a decline, prompting the Funk brothers to sell the territory to wrestlers Blackjack Mulligan and Dick Murdoch for $20,000.
In 1981, Terry engaged in a feud with Jerry Lawler while spending time in the Continental Wrestling Association. A particularly memorable encounter in this rivalry unfolded in April 1981 at the Mid-South Coliseum in Memphis, Tennessee. The unique aspect of the match was its setting, an empty arena, only with Lance Russell, a cameraman, and a photographer as witnesses. Terry had issued the challenge to Lawler due to his perceived unfair treatment in Memphis at the time. The confrontation was brief, lasting only a few minutes, and culminated in Terry attempting to injure Jerry Lawler's eye with a broken 2x4. However, Lawler countered by kicking Terry's elbow, causing him to inadvertently strike himself in the eye. This dramatic incident was captured on tape and subsequently aired on April 25, 1981. Through the early 1980s, Terry would spend most of his time bouncing between Florida, Atlanta, and Japan. But in 1985, he made a call to the World Wrestling Federation. Some of the NWA promoters were very good friends of his, but when he decided to go work for Vince in 1985, some of them viewed him as a traitor. He would debut on the same show as Randy Macho Man Savage and the British Bulldogs. Terry couldn't help but be thoroughly impressed by the organization and execution of the operation. Having experienced various wrestling territories, Terry recognized that this production under Vince was on an entirely different level. The high-end production reflected a well-oiled machine, with everyone working for Vince executing their roles seamlessly. It was a first-class operation. In his debut match, he defeated Mario Mancini. With Jimmy Hart as his manager, his unforgettable and unstable demeanor made people question if sometimes his actions were a shoot or actually part of the show. Like the time he beat up ring attendant Mel Phillips when Phillips put on Terry's hat while collecting his gear to take backstage. Terry's first WWF run wouldn't last long. By 1986, due to the constant travel and missing home, he decided his days in the WWF were over. While the WWF would introduce a new character complete with a Lone Ranger style mask, Jimmy Jack Funk was Terry's new storyline younger brother. Jimmy Jack would quickly fall to the bottom of the cards, eventually working mostly house shows, putting over other talent, and teaming with a series of journeymen whom he had no previous storyline connection. When Vince McMahon realized his attempt to cash in on the Funk name failed, Jimmy Jack left the Federation shortly after following an altercation with Haku. In August of 1987, he found himself working one last WWF show. It was in Houston for a show commemorating the retirement of Paul Boesch. Most of 1998, he decided to take a break from the ring completely to spend time at his ranch. Still working out every day, several hours a day, he was doing 1,000 crunches and was ready to get back into the ring. Terry would return to Dusty Rhodes Promotion in Florida and have a short-lived feud with Dustin Rhodes. Shortly after Terry concluded his involvement with Dusty, a call came from Jim Herd. The invitation was to participate in a Clash of Champions show scheduled for April 2, 1989. The purpose was to pay tribute to past NWA World Champions. Terry also had the opportunity to announce the main event featuring Ric Flair vs. Ricky Steamboat alongside Jim Ross. Throughout 1989, Terry would spend most of his time in the newly formed WCW, feuding with Ric Flair and having several high-profile matches. By 1990, he would be back making several tours in Japan, even appearing in the FMW promotion. In late 1993, Terry received an offer to work with the WWF. They approached him about becoming head booker, and the plan was for him to participate in the Survivor Series show in Boston. They wanted Terry to wear a strange outfit with a blue mask, playing one of Jerry Lawler's nights in a tag match against Bret Hart and his three brothers. The scripted outcome involved Bret defeating Terry, revealing his face, and then applying his finishing move, the sharpshooter, for another victory. Following this, Terry was expected to take over as creative head of the company, replacing his old friend Pat Patterson, who was looking to step down and spend more time at home. After meeting with the WWF in New York City, Terry felt a culture shock transitioning from his ranch's open space to the hustle and bustle of the city. The logistic challenge and fast-paced lifestyle made him reconsider the deal. Despite a pleasant dinner with Pat, filled with laughter and old stories, Terry, as he lay in his hotel room, started having second thoughts about the arrangement. The next morning, Terry left a note for Vince, expressing concerns about his horse being sick and possibly dying. He abruptly left, catching a flight back home, escaping the commitment. Later, Terry discovered that Lawler encountered legal troubles, and Shawn Michaels replaced him as one of the knights in the Survivor Series. In 1996, he made his first appearance in the ECW when he teamed with Tommy Dreamer to defeat Brian Lee and Shane Douglas. Already secure in his finances and an established bona fide legend in the business, and with his wife pleading with him to hang up his boots and retire, Terry opted to sign with a smaller promotion because he was dedicated to helping create and train new stars. In the latter part of 1997, ECW would begin trading talent with the World Wrestling Federation, and Terry once again would be on the main stage. He would now be known as Chainsaw Charlie, wearing a see-through nylon mask and forming a team with Mankind, even winning the WWF Tag Team titles. Terry's last match in the WWF would be on a house show in early 1998, losing to Mankind. He would bounce back to the WCW, where he would make sporadic appearances until it shut down in 2001. Terry underwent surgery for a hernia on September 12, 2016, and despite doctors' orders for bed resting lasting a few weeks, he opted to attend Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore show instead. He staged a comeback to the ring on September 22, 2017, appearing for the Big Time Wrestling promotion in Raleigh, North Carolina. He joined forces with the Rock and Roll Express in a six-man tag team match facing Doug Gilbert, Jerry Lawler, and Brian Christopher. Terry and his wife Vicky Ann tied the knot on August 14, 1965. Tragically, Vicky passed away on March 29, 2019. In June 2021, Don Morocco revealed that Terry had been diagnosed with dementia and was residing in an assisted living facility. Terry passed away on August 23, 2023 at the age of 79 while under care at a hospital in the Phoenix area. Reports indicated that he faced a struggle with dementia and later Parkinson's disease. These ailments, compounded by the physical toll of his wrestling career, likely played a role in his declining health. His passing signified the conclusion of a significant chapter in professional wrestling, leaving behind a richly storied career that will remain unmatched. That was the story of Terry Funk.